Hi, podcast listeners. Welcome to Changepreneurs podcast. My name is Satish Kumar. I'm the founder of Changepreneurs podcast. And today we have with us Vijayalakshmi. Vijayalakshmi is a distinguished award winning global master coach and mentor. She is a master certified coach from International Coaching Federation and master practitioner from European Mentoring and Coaching Council with 3,600 hours of coaching experience. She is a multifaceted management professional with 25 years of experience in consulting, human resources, and a background in law. Her coaching specialties include executive leadership wellness and conflict coaching. She is a systemic and team coach as well as an accredited mediator and amongst the first worldwide to earn the distinguished ICF advanced certification in team coaching. She is a sought after mentor for coaches and leaders. Viji, as we fondly call her, is the founder of Coach Consult, an integrated coaching and management consulting practice, which is driven by the guiding belief play at full potential, wherein every individual and entity has the potential to perform at their best. She believes her purpose is to support individuals, teams, leaders, and businesses to explore and leverage their highest potential. Viji was honored as Distinguished Coach in the ICF Coaching Impact Awards 2024. She was the first recipient of the ICF India Coaching Excellence Guru Award in 2022 and was awarded special recognition as highly commended in the EMCC Global Mentoring Awards 2023 and in the EMCC Global Coaching Awards in 2021. She served as president of ICF Chennai from 2020 to 2022, leading it to win the coveted ICF Chapter Excellence Award, chaired the landmark ICF India Conclave 2021, has been an active ICF volunteer leader for 7+ years. She currently serves as an ICF brand champion, in addition to being a member of its Credentials and Standards Appeals Committee. Viji is a coaching evangelist and the founding volunteer leader of Coaches for You, an impactful pro bono coaching initiative of the professional coaching community that came into existence in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. Her work embodies passion, vision, and unwavering commitment to the coaching profession. She is a celebrated speaker, writer, and change maker who uses her voice for good, bringing together coaches, leaders, and coaching bodies to drive social impact. She is an alumnus of National Law School, Bangalore, and Xavier Institute of Management, Jamshedpur. Viji, welcome to our podcast. It's an honor and pleasure to have you with us. And
Absolutely pleasure, Satish, too.
thank you. And co-hosting me with me today is Sunil Satyendra, an
Hello.
ICF coach from Bangalore. Welcome, Sunil.
Welcome, most welcome to all the listeners. I think you said Viji is basically the voice of coaching. So I think I met Viji's voice first, and then I met Viji. So that's always the case.
Fantastic. And we also have with us Rajesh Gangwani from Mumbai. He is a leadership communication coach. Thank you, Rajesh, for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks, Satish, and happy to be here. And now on the other side, talking to Viji this time. I've heard her so many times. A pleasure to speak to her on this platform.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's get started then. We always start our episodes with an interesting quote. And looking at the tagline of Viji's business, play at full potential, I was able to find this quote from Nelson Mandela. And this is how it goes. There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you're capable of living. With that fitting quote, Viji, let me start with the first question. You have a fascinating journey from law to HR to management consulting and now coaching. What did it take for you to get where you are?
Wow, that is such a 10,000 feet question. And So, one rider throughout this conversation that I have been so looking forward to, because all three of you are wonderful human beings and leaders in your own right. I just want to say that whatever's emerging here is in the moment. So, it's going to be a reflection of what I'm sensing and feeling at this point of time. So it may not be always coherent, but I'm certainly going to try. So the quote, you really had me at that, because that is also the philosophy behind Play at Full Potential. It's one life, really.
Right.
And I think, there is just so much to be grateful for, to be born the way we are, and in this world, in a human form. And we don't know whether there'll be a next time. So it's just one life. And everything you do, every experience in your life, I think if we can keep that in our mind and leverage it, optimize it, really sort of thrive through the experience, I would even say good or bad, um, I think then it becomes a life well lived. At least there are no regrets. There may always be regrets for things beyond your control, but at least as far as possible, if you can live a life without regrets, I think that's a life well lived, for which there is no point playing small. Right? You can be the best version of yourself out there. Now, whether you're bigger than anybody else or not is quite irrelevant. I love this other quote: all the world's your stage. All the world is your stage. And life sort of gives you those very different stages. So, as far as I remember from, I think, even early childhood, for me, it was very important to really have a good time doing whatever I was doing. Yeah, through all the striving, and it wasn't, I wouldn't say I had a very chilled out kind of childhood. As far as I remember, I was always doing something, whether it was climbing trees in the backyard way back in the 80s, or playing sport, or holding the mic, thinking that I'm the best speaker in the world. There was always this belief that, in my little stage, I could be the best. I think that's a philosophy that's also embedded the practice today, because when clients meet me, I sit across them a coaching table in a conversation. This sort of belief kind of plays, like a background, right? Like in Zoom, we have lovely background. So this becomes the background for that exploration, saying that you can be whoever you want to be. And honestly, no one's going to question. So that's my answer, Satish, and I hope it connected with where you were coming from.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. I was just sort of lost in your. I could visualize the small stage, the big stage, and the stage getting bigger and bigger. You-
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, and given your creative background, I'm sure you will, Rajesh. I can probably think of a creative running in your head right now.
So I don't know where do we start this with you. There's so many. I mean, when Satish was giving the introduction, I was wondering where do we really start, and I think it was perfect to actually start with this your philosophy of playing to potential. But let me simply start with where you are today in terms of being one of the most recognized coaches in the world, and perhaps the right person to answer a very simple question: what makes a great coach?
That's a tough question. You guys have decided to put tough questions to me, so let me also spar on, right? What's the fun if I can't give you tough answers? What makes a great coach? Um, Coaching, while it's a partnership, and we all know it's a partnership, and partnership usually assumes 50-50, unless it's a different kind of partnership. So, unlike, I think, a lot of, I think, belief that is held in the community, I feel the coach plays a active role. We don't have a passive role at all. um, and to think that, yeah, I know we say that the coach needs to become sort of go in the background, become irrelevant, etc. But if we did all that, then there is no place for the coach. Yeah, there is a place. So this is this beautiful partnership where you're doing your 50, but in a very different way. The journey is always the client's. And I think great coaches understand this, but they also equally understand, and that's where this word called coaching confidence that you and I have spoken about before, Rajesh, comes in, where the coach also knows their place in that scheme of things.
Mm.
So to be able to value yourself first, enabling you to value the other, I think lays the foundation for great coaching. To know your place, to know you have an equal share to bring into the partnership. At the same time, the outcomes, the journey is of the other partners. And I can think of few partnerships in the world that are like that. Very active, yet sort of not being yours. There is no ownership, but there is investment. And I think great coaches understand these paradoxes. So I would say, to be a good coach or a great coach, let's kind of look at it as a journey, yeah, a continuum of greatness. It's a journey to greatness. And none of us are there at the other end yet. I don't even know what the other end looks like. But I think the journey to greatness encompasses this, to know exactly what your role is as a coach, and to build on the earlier question, not to play small. Yeah, it's not, you can't make a client feel big by making yourself small. Yeah. By
Mm.
making yourself big, you make the client bigger. And I think that's the shift greatness to coaching brings in. Um, and to be able to effortlessly marry paradoxes. Yeah. Coaching is filled with paradoxes. I mean, we can do like an entire conversation around it. To be comfortable with that discomfort, with that stickiness, with that humaneness, and all the drama that it brings along with it, to realize you're human too. I think all of these, really are about not just understanding and accepting paradoxes, but to make them work for you and for the client and to thrive. So
Mm.
yeah, I think two things. One is the whole thing about paradoxes. The second thing is about knowing your place, and linking the two is to say that, hey, you know what? I don't have to make myself small in this whole process.
Mm.
Wow. I think Viji, we will also need to have a little bit of that space where all of us, all three of us, are sort of, reveling in and reflecting in on all the things that you're sharing and be like, nodding our heads. So this is possibly the episode with highest number of head nods saying, yeah, yeah, you're right.
I'm also nodding my head. So
So this can be an interesting episode. So yeah, so my interest in asking you questions that sometimes is not expected. So if you were a cartoon character, who would you be?
you know what? You really had putting me in an uncomfortable space, because growing up, uh, and now I reflect, I've not really watched too much of cartoons. Yeah, and in fact, um, I wouldn't even watch too much TV. So I'm just thinking, what is the cartoon character I I would connect with, and not sure. Maybe, um, yeah, maybe Superman. I don't know if that's a cartoon character even, but with my
Yeah.
limited sort of no, actually, I used to like He-Man. I think that's probably the only series I watched religiously on TV way back in the day.
So,
And I used to like the tagline, right? Masters of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe. Yeah, correct, correct, correct. And so, with a follow-up question, so what's your superpower as an individual?
So it's like, opening out your sort of cape and seeing what's inside, right? My superpower as an individual, I would just say my urge to really live life. And while we can't talk about the future, I feel, life, while it's given me so many knocks, it's not even as if I try very hard to, to bounce back or something. I can't be down for too long. I always find something that pulls me out, and it's I don't know, maybe it's innate, but I do consider that a superpower because in today's world, you really don't know, the pace of change, the way the world is evolving. I believe that could be a superpower in its own right. That optimism, yeah, that indefatigable optimism, the ability to never say never, right? That no is just a pause. For every no, there is a yes. So I think this cluster of things would probably be a superpower, because I think it just, so the other thing about superpowers is I think it needs to be congruent. It's not like a skill that you're acquiring and building and saying, hey, you know what, I'm the best artist in the world, or I'm the best athlete, or whatever. It is about things that are so congruent to you, so internal to you, and to be able to recognize that and say that, yeah, this serves me really well.
Mm.
Fascinating, fascinating.
Mhm. So, just to sort of join the dots between what Satish just asked you and the previous one, uh, and the bit about paradoxes was interesting because I was going through a, 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 a report by PwC, and they had these six paradoxes for leadership in the future.
Yeah. Okay.
And there were two that sort of stood out for me, and they seem to connect very well with what you just shared. One was called the humble hero,
Hmm.
uh, and the second one, which I thought was also interesting, was technology savvy humanist. And you know, there's just two words that stick out for me, and this apply to so much to you, to the point that you mentioned about humility. Um, Humility in the sense of knowing your place in a coaching conversation, and that's very refreshing, because what I've always heard is almost between the power dynamics. There's always so much between the coach and the coachee power dynamics, if we're to use the word power here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like if one had to push it, it was always like you are in service of the client, and eventually you don't have agendas, you are like a conduit, all those things. What I'm hearing for the first time, actually, ever in a coaching conversation, saying know your place, and you have your 50%. You play an active role. It's not like in the business, as they say, a sleeping partner. You're an awake
Yeah.
you're an awake partner. You're an awake partner in more ways than one. So I thought that was really refreshing for me. The bit about humanist, and I thought it was interesting that to pick your brains on technology savvy humanist, uh, being comfortable with technology, but knowing very well that at the end of the day, it's an organization being run by people for people. And I've always heard you, Viji, in all your many sessions that I've heard, the word humanity, the human aspect of being a coach. Somewhere I see that refrain almost as a backdrop to just tell us a little bit about this humanity of being a coach, or the human aspect of being a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I may add, that also is part of the greatness question, right, that we discussed just a while ago. Human beings are great people, but I mean, yeah, that's a bit of a repetition, but I still wanted to say that, I mean, we're great living beings. But I think, we've just taken that for granted. So what's the big deal? What's the big deal to be human? But in a world, like I said, that's increasingly getting clonized, yeah, and in a world that's increasingly getting SOP driven, process driven, and I would say almost machine like, it's a gift and actually a superpower to just be human and to
Mm.
understand the power of that. And I always, you've heard me say this before, Rajesh. One of the superpowers of being a masterful coach is to be human, is to recognize that. You can keep adding on things to your toolkit. But if you ask me, is that really making that difference to the client? I don't think so. Clients are not bothered what's the latest certification you got, or what are the next new jazzy things in your toolkit. They just want a human being who's committed, who cares deeply, who understands their pain points and their successes, who can allow themselves to seem like, hey, you're like me at the end of the day. You're not better than me. You're not more arrived in life than me. You're not, you're not more sorted than me. A lot of people come into coaching feeling very disempowered. It's not that they've always been like that. Yeah. There are these highs and lows. And at a point, they feel a lack of that empowerment. So they feel very messed up. They're not that sorted. Imagine coming into a room, yeah, where the other person is absolutely, everything is in order. It's very hard to trust a human being like that. It's just human, right? You want to, how do we make friends, how do we find our tribe, how do we get connection with others, because they're like us in some ways. So while the client and the coach don't have to be mirror images or clones, it's that human factor that allows for this greatness that we spoke about, that coaching can facilitate. So you got to be human, you got to accept your own frailties and fragilities and mistakes and losses, and then sort of connect at that level. It paves the way for something very magical. That's been my humble experience as a coach with all these years.
Wow. Very interesting
And I
in
can
terms.
build the same for leadership too.
Hmm.
You know, there are organizations where the CEO is so relatable and yet is not somebody who is willing to accept that. Who's thinking about, hey, okay, what next? Where do we go next? What can we do better? At the same time, accepting that we are all human. So often this question in coaching circles goes that, is AI going to take over our jobs? And, is it going to replace all kinds of coaching? I feel the more human we can be, that's a superpower that for some time, I believe is not going to be replicable. Only time will tell.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, Sonal, I didn't mean to
No, no,
butt
no,
into your
absolutely,
question, but I just
absolutely,
wanted to finish
absolutely.
that thought.
No, that is, it was also a great segment that you added, that AI and coaching uh, may not be, or AI can come into coaching, and coaching can still coexist, or get better. So every time somebody asks me the same question, my only answer is, so that makes my services premium because you would have come to AI, you would have listened to AI, or worked with AI, and something would have come along, but you were still coming to me. That means there's something that is beyond AI that you're seeking.
Yeah.
And so what the question that I also wanted to sort of just nudge you with is, what makes you pause and go wow?
So do I answer this as a coach or as a human being?
Human
The
coach.
human being who is a
Human
coach.
coach? Okay. So let me answer that as a human being first, because that's also something that connects all of us, right? Coaching also connects us. Um, the beauty and the joy of little things, small things, everyday things, that makes me go wow. So I can still get extremely excited about on a hot summer day if it just breaks into a rain. Or seeing a bunch of my favorite roses all bloom together when I thought they were dying. um, or a little bird that kind of suddenly comes and is like, oh my god, in Chennai you have such things happening in urban centers. Or the ability to be able to dance with strangers to the common tune of music. I and I said, the world is increasingly getting complex, people getting more guarded, and where we are always in this rush for getting and achieving those big things. But it's still those little ones that make me go wow as a human being. And so there are many wows actually in my daily life, something or the other to look forward to. And I also remind myself, when sometimes I get overwhelmed, or I'm really sort of stuck with the bigger things, so-called bigger things. accomplishments, goals, responsibilities. It's just stop and be able to understand and still be able to cherish the wow of these small things. So that's as a human being. As a coach, the biggest wow for me comes when clients are able to do magical things for themselves, things that they never thought they could or they should or they would. That joy is just unparalleled. When they recently I had a client who came into a session, and just like that, out of the blue, usually my sessions are not very structured. There's like at least 50% scope to bring up anything on your mind, because I know if where we are working on is important, eventually we will get there. It is going to come back. So this client came and really started giving me this completely unprepared, and if I may, speech or talk on how coaching is so powerful. And I was like, man, I'm supposed to be saying all this. Wow. So it's amazing. And I've learned so much from all my clients, the way they live life. And I've worked with clients where, as a human being, my heart would go out saying, oh God, with so much going wrong, this person still wants to work on, something to move ahead. Would I have been able to do this? I'm not sure. So this greatness of clients in all their normalcy and humanness, it gives me several wows. And that is one of the reasons, with everything, we coaches also have our own set of pressures and demands and fatigue and everything. I still come back feeling there are conversations where, and I'm being very honest, I know this is getting into a public platform, but I just want to say this because I think we need to normalize this. As a coach, there are many days where I may not go into the session feeling my very best, but effective enough to be able to coach, right? I mean, I always ask myself that if I'm completely unfit, I won't even go. But it's never going to be 100-0. So you take that call and then you go in. But there are so many sessions I come out feeling so recharged. And then I would even wonder, I mean, who is adding value to who here? Initially, I used to even feel a little guilty. But that is the truth of partnership. Yes. And if you may want to look at it, these are all the amazing hidden perks of being a coach.
Absolutely.
You get so many wow moments for free if you choose to look.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Like,
So
this conversation, right? I mean, I can already see a lot of wows clicking in my head. Oh, wow. And we didn't plan for it, right? So
yeah. But since you mentioned about client and this person coming and talking about the power of coaching, it'd be nice to hear from you about any example from an individual lens or a team coaching lens about where you felt real change happened. Because one of the things that we all know as humans, as coaches, change is tough. It's not easy. And you have 6 sessions, sometimes 8 sessions perhaps, to make a difference. Or to help people move forward and make progress, right? Having said that, did you ever get that? I'm sure there are many examples that you would have that where you felt there was a definite shift that happened, and sometimes the shift can happen even in the second or third session. You don't even need 6 sessions, right? Anything that comes to your mind?
yeah, I mean, lot of stories and examples, Rajesh, but I'm just picking on which one I want to talk about. So this goes back into the pandemic, and this is one that also taught me so many lessons as a coach, important life lessons, and that was the hardest phase to coach. Because I've coached pre-pandemic, because in the pandemic, everything was unsure, and we had to be human first before we could be coaches. So we had our own set of life-threatening problems, worries about the future, anxiety, and everything. But still, I think I feel very proud of not just myself, but other coaches who still said, "No, I will go there and do what I need to do." In fact, as Satish had kindly read out in the introduction, Coaches for You was an ideology like that, which is why it's very, very close to my heart. At a time when we didn't know anything, where the world was headed and what was happening in our own lives, to be able to stand out there and say, okay, we still want to, like doctors, right? I mean, doctors had their most existential struggles. Every time they would go into a clinic or a hospital setting, they were setting up their loved ones for great risks, but
Yeah.
still they did it. So while I think coaches did not have those kind of risks, emotionally, to be able to hold space when you are broken emotionally, and that was a big lesson for me as a coach. I know I'm going a little off script, but I want to just talk about it, that um, you know like I said earlier, your life doesn't have to be perfect for you to be able to offer space to another human being. And that was a fantastic lesson I learned, about how coaches ought to show up. And so this engagement, I had this one coach. It was an executive coaching program, and the person had just moved into a new role. It was unfortunate because it was happening during the pandemic. The pandemic just broke out and this had just happened, and a horrible time to take over, right? New team, new very senior role, like a leadership role, and with so many constraints. And the important thing was their personal life was also breaking into several pieces. Loss of a very close loved one, their own health getting compromised, and yet having to do this, holding space for their teams. It was a very messy situation. So imagine when a person comes in with so much overwhelm, you don't even know where to start. How do you even get to talking about, and it was a transition coaching engagement, by the way, to enable this person to transition. So it was their first role at that kind of a leadership engagement. And how do you even get there with so much of mess going on? There's only that much that coach or coaching can do. And when we go back to the partnership, remember it's 50-50, right? So in this engagement, the greatest learning to me was giving the client that space, the client giving themselves that space. So the first out of 10 sessions, the first 4 sessions was simply in accepting and understanding and figuring out their reality, leave alone goal setting and all that. The organization was extremely supportive. You can sometimes have very, very tightly managed coaching programs where at the end of session 2, they want to know, so what is the shift that's happened? What has happened? What goals? And, the organization was, I think, very, very mature enough to give that space. And here's the beautiful thing, right? As we navigated this around the 6th or 7th session, it was too much. I mean, it was really at a point where this person was taking 4 steps ahead and coming back 5 steps. So we were not even clear what was going on. So that's when again the humanistic principles come into place. Now let's say you're holding the space with a very close loved one or a friend that you are, leave alone the fact whether you're a coach or not. You're never going to be able to force change or to speed up just because we wanted to do something. So the realization that space is very important. So actually, I remember we just paused the engagement, not because it was not working or not because the client was not trying hard enough, or none of those reasons. I felt my coach's intuition, and I believe a lot of the coach's intuition. I actually said, where are we going? Or where do you want to go at this point? And the client said, actually, nowhere. I think I just need to catch my breath. So I remember with a great amount of courage, I actually said, so shall we just, I didn't want to say the words, but I still remember. I said, shall we just stop this? And then my client came back and said, no, let's pause it. I said, yeah, fantastic. Let's pause it. And we didn't know when we were going to resume, what was going to happen. So we just took a pause for 4-5 months. And the magic in all this, and I remember it was January or February, New Year, client was back with renewed vigor, renewed, I think resourcefulness. It was not as if all the problems were resolved or something, like maybe 20-30%, the new problems that came in. And client came and said, I'm ready to start again. Are you ready to, for us to? I said, absolutely. And in that 4 5 months that passed by, there were so many shifts that happened. Now, do you attribute this to coaching and what we had created, or do you attribute this to something else? Now, evidence-based coaching, you can never give you an answer on this. But I truly believe from my heart, there was something we had laid in that foundation, uh, just to be able to recognize reality and to understand yourself a little better. And even the realization for the client to say, I need a break, I need a pause, to have that courage to tell the coach. Because, you spoke about power dynamics, right? A lot of clients also come in somewhere with the power dynamics that, I need to show up in a certain way with the coach. And that's something I break like in session one. You don't have to show up in any way. You be how you want to be. Now it's my job to be able to find creative ways for us to move forward with that. And I truly believe that coaching had a role to play in this shift. Did it happen in the session? Did it happen through powerful questions that I asked? Did it happen through anything I did actively? No. But would I take away from the fact that we had created something that allowed for that growth in that period when we were away from one another? Absolutely, yes. So this was an amazing thing that changed a lot of narratives in my head, that coaching does not have to happen in a certain way. You may have contracted in a certain way. As long as you're able to be true to the intent and the objective of that contract, it's totally fine. So one of the most amazing engagements, because not just for the shift for the client, but the shift for me as a coach. Space is so important. You can't rush change. You can't rush growth. You can't rush actions. So how much space are you willing to give? I don't know. However much it takes.
Mhm.
Did that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
I think we
absolutely.
just spellbound. I think you just, yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I said it's a nodding podcast, no? Because we're like, oh, that that's an intense sharing that you did in terms of, so many uh, aspects, the whole aspect of how I think COVID disrupted a lot of stuff. It made so many things become important in our lives, and also so many things that we thought important suddenly became completely redundant. And I think now if people ask us saying how was COVID, we have possibly saying it was intense. That's it, one word, and intense and close. But every day there was a very very different day to go through with that. Absolutely an intense time at that. Um, but yeah, keeping it on the aspect of change as such. What has changed within you as an individual after you have accessed coaching? I leave it at that, as an individual, as a coach learner, coach, mentor, coach, supervisor. The bandwidth is yours. But how did coaching change you?
And if I may just add, Satish, to your question, uh, since you played so many roles, being part of Unilever in HR, then being a management consultant and a coach, what's been the unlearning as you've gone along?
Yeah, good question. And I'm just wondering, where I can start with this one. So let me start with what you said first, Sunil, about how do I say this? Can you repeat that? You use beautiful words. Uh, what has shifted for you? Can you repeat
Yeah,
that?
yeah. What shifted for you as an individual? Yeah,
Um, I think I'm just first things first. I think I'm more compassionate as an individual. And don't get me wrong, it's not as if I'm somebody who would have rated myself very low on that as a quality. But coaching enables you, if you're ready, if you want to really, really be compassionate. Like I said in the previous example, it's very easy to judge. It's very easy to go back to contracts, the rules, um, a lot of the things we learn in coach training, uh, and get sort of bound by those. and to lose touch of what's actually happening around us. So in a way, this is also about, um, you all have a lovely name, Changepreneurs podcast. And I remember asking you what was the vision. I think to be, each one of us can be that change agent. I think after, I was always somebody who was big on advocacy, and I would stand up for causes. I would see things through to completion on things I felt passionate about. But this is a very different level of change, that grassroots, day in and day out change is something you're facilitating. So I think every coach has the potential in themselves to view yourself as a change maker. For which I think it's very important to be compassionate to yourself and others. So I think coaching has allowed me to do that. Because the moment you start looking at things long term, with a certain longer horizon, like I explained earlier, with a different frame of reference, you are bound to you're bound to slow down. And it is in that slowing down you're actually speeding up, because the end goals that we're working towards are not as easy as saying, okay, let's now get 10% top line growth. That's a far easier one than to say, can this leader be more, um, can this leader be a more humble leader, for example? I mean, leave alone the coach, for the leader itself to figure this out. First of all, to realize that, that humility is important to serve me well, is something they've got to realize. So you need to be compassionate to people. These goals that we take on and people tell us is not black or white. There are a lot of grays. So that was a big shift, especially from management consulting, Rajesh, where you get paid for the quality of your ideas, and there's always a time bound dimension to it. In coaching, there isn't, and there can't be. You really cannot rush it. So I learned compassion in a very organic way, from the inside out. So I'm also much kinder to myself than I think I would have been in my earlier days, perhaps. I am also more grounded, not just because you're older now and you have more gray hair and you're more mature. No, you're grounded because you are able to embrace success and failure, move aheads and move behinds, with a certain sense of, you look at it more 360. You're not looking at things and labeling them as successes and failures. Because most coaching engagements, for a few steps forward, there will be a few steps back. And as coaches, you can't get disheartened with that. Progress and change and growth is not linear. And, for professionals like us, where we are used to, right? I mean, there's school, there's college, there's job one, job two, there's a certain career track. You're used to things being linear.
Yeah.
And you almost look at a step back as as sort of a regress. But I've learned that in the journey to growth, progress and regress will both be there, and both have their part to play. I remember, I think when I was about in my 30s, there was a phase where I really sort of took certain calls because of some personal happenings in my life, which were conventional regresses from a career stance. And this happens to a lot of people, who are, a lot of women leaders face it. I mean, I would say people who are caregiving for others, people who have faced calamities. And I always used to look at that point of time as, oh my God, this is, I'm doing something that's taking me back. But today, when I look at it, it has paved the way, those moments, and what I've navigated, what I learned about myself, those frustrating moments where you want to do, your head wants to do something, but your conscience has taken a call to ask you to stand still. So even in coaching, I mean, and let's be honest, you want to, right? You want to see that energy. Okay, now that you got the idea, come on, let's hit the ground running. And that's how in sport we think. You're not going to be mulling over something and waiting for things to happen. But you know that you can't force that. That thing will happen when it is ready to happen, when the player or your client is ready to do that. And it's hard to accept it, because you see things differently. So I think, in a way, those personal points of regress, actually today I'm able to look at it holistically and say, these have served me. These have made my growth sustainable. They've made me solid, because I have seen progress and regress. So today, if somebody comes and says, even in a coaching session, saying, you know what, I don't want to progress my career and I want to just take a pause, and they feel it's right, I think it's great. And, the organization maybe then needs to just accept that. Go back to where I started, right? This is one life. You're going to have a lot of experiences that make you who you are. So compassion, the ability to, I think, view growth as a set of progresses, regresses, successes, failures, ups, downs, that's been an amazing change. And so today, if I have to pause my coaching, if I lose a client, at one point of time, I remember during the pandemic, and I was playing how do I say, a passionate leadership role in the coaching world and organization, right? I mean, a more formal role. I cut back on a lot of things. I had to cut back somewhere. So cut back on things like my own practice. I took a few steps back. So it would seem to me, and well-meaning friends would ask me saying, why are you doing this? I mean, it could be suicidal. You're in the path of establishing yourself as a coach. And, you need to pay attention to this first. But sometimes the world calls you to pay attention to other things. And it is coaching that has allowed me to be able to take these calls, bold calls, which seem scary at a point of time. I remember when we ran the ICF India Conclave, it was crazy, right? At the peak of the pandemic, second wave, so many people said, drop the conference, cancel it. Nobody's going to ask you. Everybody understands. Come on, this is a human thing to do. But I'm glad we persisted, and it came at a price. At that point of time, still you actually know the outcome. The sacrifices or the bold decisions that you take always seem like question marks, wondering whether you're regressing. Sometimes it may give you the result, sometimes it's not. But I think what's important is to be able to live with those decisions and to say, this is what the universe, the system needed me to be. So the third thing that I want to talk about basis this, and I didn't think of it earlier, but I'm connecting the dots, is to be able to see a larger duty and a larger place for you in the system as you as a part of the system rather than you by yourself. So you start measuring successes and failures and taking stock of things beyond yourself. So today, for example, one of the things that really, really gets me wondering, and I spend a lot of my conversations around it, is we got to change the narrative around coaching. We have to make this a more credible profession. Now, I can just think, and that's nothing wrong with that. Is to say, okay, my practice is doing well, and things are good. I'm doing great work. I have very good clients. Why should I? It's not about whether you should or you should not. But I think some of us, the shift happens when you realize that your growth is really not going to be growth unless the world around you, the system around you grows.
Yeah.
So this is the other very powerful shift.
Oh, there's so much to take in and absorb, and through what you're sharing about your journey. And this brings me to this point about I read somewhere about coaching from the heart space, right? And you've spoken about that. And when I hear words like compassion, kindness, it just brings back to this whole what does it really mean when you say coach from the heart space? Because there's so much today, we live in a world of data-based decision making, numbers, ROI, outcome-based approaches. What does it really mean in leadership today? Where is the space for heart coaching from the heart space? Is there a space in leadership today for that?
I would say absolutely yes. And let's start off with things like if you look at competencies, and we all know that, right? These are all guides to help coaches build themselves towards credentialing and even to be professional about their practice. And I'm not kind of referring to any one body. You look at any of the bodies. If you really look at masterful coaching competencies, which I think is an evolution itself in the journey of a coach, there is a lot of reference, even though they don't use that word, for coaching okay, let's say, what is it? I mean, what is it for me to coach from a heart space? It is to tap into a couple of things. And you probably know where I'm going to start. It's to tap into your humanness. Yeah. What is it that as a human being I'm sensing, feeling, experiencing in this situation, in this partnership? It is to be able to tap strongly into your intuition and gut, um, and pay attention to it. Listen to that voice. Remember, I told you saying that we are not passive. So the activeness also means that even though I'm sensing something and I don't have evidence, I don't have data, and I strongly feel, and that it's not because it's coming from a place of ego. Yeah, I'm an experienced coach. Okay, I know where this person is going. This is the problem. This is the issue. No, just to say that, I'm sensing something that, and honesty of our relationship requires me to say it as it is. So that's the other thing, yeah? The intuition, the gut, which takes a lot of courage. The third thing is your wisdom. It's not about whether you've coached 2,000 clients or 5,000 clients. The numbers will all be there. We can keep adding up the numbers. It's good to put in your application. But at the end of the day, are you also able to thread across the learnings through each of these clients without seeming prescriptive or judging or, I know it all? It's like what makes, for example, our elders, in a village, there are village elders, or, in a family, they are able to, it's like, and you've all grown up in Indian households. There'll always be, a senior woman in the family who would have the most organic fixes for a health challenge or for a problem, which or even a situation, right, which any management book cannot give you. And that wisdom will be so simple, so humble, so coming from a place of experience.
Yeah.
You can't sort of go wrong with that. So these are all the simple things. But what happens is in our urge to want to be more scientific, more science driven, more advanced, we lose track of what are the most basic, the fundamentals of coaching. To me, coaching from a heart space is to go back to your fundamentals. Great leaders do this all the time, when they have conversations or skip levels or town halls or just one-on-ones. They will inquire and connect with you at a level that makes sense to you the most before they get into everything else, all about business. So even as coaches, when we go in, let's not do the business of coaching. And I'm not talking about business building as in that business, but our job of coaching. Okay, let me go with this. Let me go with this. Let me go with this. We go in meeting the client where they are. Tap into our intuition. Tap into our wisdom. Tap into just being human in that session. Many things will unfold. Most people come into coaches not because they don't know the answers.
Yeah.
It's there somewhere, but we're tapping it out. Maybe they don't see it in that way. Maybe we're giving them through questions a different way to look at things. Like this conversation, beautiful questions you all are asking. I never came prepared with these answers, and I'm sure I'm going to cherish, whether anybody else listens or not, just to listen and say, okay, so did I say this, and what did this mean to me? So that is heart-centered coaching, and I think it absolutely has a place, whether in leadership, whether in business, whether in families, or in coaching. Because coaching ultimately is a reflection of all these
Of
worlds,
life. Yeah.
family, business, profession, and all that. It's not a new something that you're doing. And yeah, I want to add on one more thing. Being human is also about being genuinely curious and creative. You put a human being in a closed room with nothing, right? Lock him up. He or she will find ingenuous ways to manage the situation. You give them 100 things with all the resources, they will be wanting for more. They will feel like they don't have X, Y, and Z. The greatest empowerment comes when you have less. So I believe coaching from a heart space also means coaching with less.
Mm.
It's not coaching less,
Mm.
but it's coaching with less.
Interesting. So we are jugadifying coaching, but prior to that, possibly, I will just check in with Satish because he's been silent for quite some time. He said he has a
Yeah,
rapid
I
fire.
was. Yeah, I was just thinking when doing less, have less. You know, less is more. Doing less is more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was fascinated with the whole conversation and many of the things that Viji said in this podcast episode. I'm sure it's going to grab the attention of listeners, and one podcast episode has the potential to change a human being's life, and
Wow.
that's what we are intending to do with this episode. Thank
Fantastic.
you,
More
Viji.
power to you all.
Yeah. So
And
let
yeah.
please
Sorry.
go on, Raj.
Yeah. No, I said before you get into your rapid fire session, Satish, sorry, Viji was going to do some reveal. She said, I'm going to do some reveal
Yes.
in the session. Yeah. Before we forget.
It's not a reveal. Yeah, but I'm very happy that I can um, at least voice this intent in this space, because this is a forum where you get people from different walks of lives who want to um, be the agents of change in their own way. So it's very special to be here. I mean, yes, I have participated in a lot of podcasts, including Sunil's, a session with Sunil himself some time back. Um, but this one's special because there's something very magical about being a change agent, and a changepreneur, as you guys are. So what I do want to share, and that gives me a lot of joy, and I think excitement as well, because this is probably the first time I'm kind of speaking about it publicly, and this is something that's been on my been a passion project for some time now, and hopefully by the time the podcast is released, we would have also kind of put it out there for the next steps to happen. So one of the things that, like I mentioned earlier, it's not enough for individual coaches to grow in their little islands of excellence. Ultimately, if a profession needs to thrive, if professionals need to thrive, um, the entire ecosystem, you need to grow holistically. It's not about different parts growing. And the first challenge, I think, and a lot of coaches, and you would all relate to it, is it's so hard making people understand what coaching is, getting the right kind of clients. And yes, it's a new profession in a country like ours, where still people confuse it so easily with all other kinds of coaching or mentoring or teaching. It's really, really confusing. And on the one side, while it's confusing for coaches to operate in a space like this, because every conversation you meet somebody, your first initial investment is to just clarify the work you do. It's almost like you're going out there and first talking, your visiting card doesn't talk for itself. And all of you have been in previous career roles earlier. Have you ever had this challenge in any of your previous roles? You say you're a product manager, people understand you. You're an advertiser, they understand. You're a management consultant, they understand. You go and say, I'm a professional coach. Oh, what is it that you do? And this happens across levels. Okay. Now, while this can be challenging for coaches, imagine as a consumer of coaching, if somebody approaches you, or let's say you're trying to hire a coach, if you don't even know what it is all about, you're going to just go with anyone, a promise anyone is making. So this is also about consumer protection. So this has been playing on my mind for a while now, and I think I must give also our journey at Coaches for You a lot of credit, because our experience of having done, the I would say noble service of offering coaching to anybody who wanted to experience it, led us to one insight, that while coaches and we can come together, offer this to everyone, that there must be an appetite to, it's not just because it is free doesn't mean that everyone's going to come, right? Because sometimes bad coaching can leave you scarred. So you need to build that appetite, or it's not as if, yeah, coaching can fix everything. Of course not. But I think to be able to at least tell the world that this is available, so that awareness creation piece, the right kind of awareness, is very, very important. And I realized that even as Coaches for You independently, and this is like a collective of 200 plus coaches, it's so difficult. That was our biggest challenge, to be able to invest and do that. And I don't think it's even happening through any of the collectives, or individual groups of coaches or individual coaches. There's only that much we can do. Today we need to legitimize the profession, we need to build credibility, we need to be able to take care of consumer education. And so it's been in my heart, and it's been my vision to bring like-minded people. And whenever I talk to, and even the four of you individually, we've had conversations, I know that something like that is also on your mind. It troubles you, it concerns you. But I think it's important, here's a time for 2025 for the coaching community, not just coaching community, but people who are invested in this, thinkers, innovators, I think policymakers, whoever, leaders, to come together to be able to really drive this movement. And I call it a movement. It's not an organization. A movement is more powerful than an organization, because a movement is very inclusive. It brings in everybody to see what we can do about it. Because the change begins with us. If we want to see, you need to be the change you wish to see in the world. And that's beyond just a nice to have. We started with a quotation, and I'm saying this now. We need to be that change. And we don't know where it's going to take us, how much we can do. But bringing back, putting coaching out there, and right now talk about India, because India is going through an amazing period of growth, amazing period where it's thriving, and we are only at the tip of the iceberg. There's just, and I think coaching also, we are in a similar space. So bringing the two thoughts together, the dream and the movement is all about coaching in India shining. So CIIS is the movement, and I really hope it will make a small start, and it will just grow from strength to strength, where anybody who's concerned about the profession, anybody who wants to see the profession shining nice and bright, like India shining, this will be coaching in India shining. Coaching needs to become a part of the India shining story. Coaching needs to be a vehicle for that holistic growth that we are driving in Bharat, and that's my vision,
Wow.
which really needs to happen. And I'm just so happy to express it here in this way. And I'm so grateful for you to ask and give me that opportunity to share.
And like we started with a small stage, and now we're talking of a really big stage.
Yeah, and we don't even know what the stage is going to be, right? Who are the actors? We have no idea, but that's what is exciting. That is what is super exciting. And I believe, and I have the confidence that many of the things that we thought we could never do, for example, coaches in India coming together, this was not even a thing, right? The ability for four of us in different parts of the country to meet like this, to create something, was not a thing. To be able to democratize and make coaching accessible was not a thing. Today, all of that is happening in beautiful ways. To run a conclave entirely virtually, making it inclusive and running it pro bono, unbelievable. It happened. So there is a power in the dream. There is a power in people coming together. And none of this is something, while I was a part of it in many ways, I or anybody else can do it alone. This will only happen when people come together. And it's my invitation through your podcast as well to anybody listening. If this connects with you, if you sleep, you lose sleep over saying, oh my God, what kind of a profession am I in, which people don't even understand? Or, if you're on the other side saying that, what is this profession? It just seems like a lot of mumbo jumbo. This is where you need to be.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing in this platform, Viji. And this podcast is an example of people coming together and creating magic. I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I was doing it solo, and it's a universal conspiracy that we all happen to come together and created this wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing here. And
Absolutely.
Rajesh and Sunil, if you don't have further questions, then we can get
No,
into the intriguing quick fire round.
Is it going to be hard? I'm not very good at MCQs.
no
So,
further
Yeah.
questions.
I just have 5 questions and
okay.
very simple questions.
Right.
Let's see.
Let's go.
Okay. First one habit that keeps you grounded.
Gratitude.
Wow, fantastic. One book that changed your life.
Several talks, but I can't, I'm not a very book person, so I'll skip that. But you can
Okay.
ask me one more if you want. Because I got this question.
If there is a talk that you want to mention here.
No, actually, you know what? I want to go back actually to my days in law school. There was a book on all the books on jurisprudence. I would love. I
Mhm.
think it played a huge role in my ability to be able to see things in a very balanced way.
Mm. Thank you. Biggest myth about life.
I think the biggest myth about life is that it's predestined to go in a certain way.
Mm.
You can write your destiny, or you can rewrite your destiny.
Fantastic. What is always on your desk?
Wow, that's nice. I'm just looking at my desk now. So, yeah, I would just say my mugs. I have a lovely collection of mugs, and I'm usually sort of sipping away at something. I love my mugs. So, you'll always find a nice mug on my desk.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, one final interesting question. This is a hypothetical question. Let's just say that for whatever reason, all the work that you've done, including coaching, consulting, the blogs that you've written, the videos that you've done, including this podcast, all are gone for some reason. Okay, and you get to leave behind 3 truths about who you are. What are those 3 truths would be?
You got to give me a minute for this because I need to think about it. I'm just already reeling with the shock that, oh my God, all these could be gone. But you're material things at the end of the day.
Right.
You don't read, I mean, you don't take any of these to your grave, do you? Um, so, 3 truths about myself, about life,
3 truths that are true about Viji.
about me.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, as my daughter would, uh, pull my leg and say, "I'm a happy child."
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always find a way to find something to be happy about. Uh, Second truth is, you know, uh, live life big. I think in my own small circles that life has offered me, um, I've I've always found myself to go to the to experience the whole perimeter,
Mm.
whatever be those circles. Um, third truth about me is, I mean, it seems a bit weird to say this, but let me still say it because uh, yeah, I think that's true. Uh, here was a good person.
Mm.
I think the fact that when I go to sleep every night, um, I like to sleep light, and my sense of confidence just comes that I've been a good person today,
Absolutely.
no matter what, however tough. Always do the right thing. So this has left me with its own share of consequences to deal with. But it's so much easier to do the right thing and deal with them rather than doing the easy thing, which could be wrong and then can uh, keep haunting you. So I think for most things in my life, I've not had regrets.
Wow. Thank you for sharing in this
Wow.
platform. So,
Yeah.
Viji, is there one final thing, one final remark that you want to leave it to the audience?
Yeah, I just want to say that, even through this conversation, there are so many layers to every human being, whether it's Satish, whose brainchild this podcast is, whether it's Rajesh, Sunil, amazing people, or myself. I think there are so many layers to us, and that's where the beauty lies, not through our unidimensionality. So I would say to people listening in, find ways to be able to appreciate those multiple dimensions of yourself. All of us have it. There's the good and there's the not so good. Uh, there's the beautiful and not so beautiful sides. There are the ups and the downs. It's very important to be able to not hide anything away from yourself or hide in your own shadows. So we need to move to a space where we can appreciate all of this. And therein lies each of our superpowers. You may discover something at the age of 60 that you never saw all these years. Uh, Great coaches help you do this. You don't have to do it with a coach. You can do it yourself, and it's one life. So before you understand others, you serve others, you have a relationship with others, you live life for others, you live life through others. Do all this with yourself first.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, what a way to end.
what a way to end. Yeah. Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you so
wanted to
much.
say thank you, to the three of you. This was one of my most memorable conversations, and potentially could have passed off for a great coaching like conversation as well. So
Mhm.
I got to be, coached by three great coaches today. So thank you for that.
Who are nodding.
Yes, that's
Nodding
what coaches do,
coaches.
right? So this is a great evidence. Active partnership, but the light always shining on your guest, and at the same time, you're not, you're giving the guest a tough time, which is what is allowing them to bring out, um, everything about them, their journey. So that's great coaching.
Absolutely. And Viji, it's always been that conversation with you. I think we always leave the conversation saying, I think maybe there's another episode in
Some
here.
more.
Yeah.
There's some more in here. Uh, there's more to ask. And I think yeah. So there would already be a line of people to say, you know what, I also subscribe to coaching in India Shining. If that's not done, your first subscriber is already here.
I
So
know.
yeah. So
Soon,
like
very soon.
and like all our like all those popular OTTs, we have a second season of Viji.
You may just come back to your listening saying, oh my God, did I actually say that? Let's do a retake now, right? So which will never happen. This is life, and let's flow along. Thank you so
Absolutely,
much. Yeah.
Thanks a
absolutely.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, and
Thanks.
thanks for being who you are, and I wish you good luck for your movement and the vision that you have for CIIS. Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you so much.
we are enrolled already.
Yeah,
into
I
that.
know I was already, like that thing, right? You volunteer somebody else. So I'm really counting on friends and like-minded visionaries such as yourself
Thank you.
to together
You,
make
and
whatever difference we can make.
yeah.
yeah, sure,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Thank you so much, listeners, for the patient listening as well. Please subscribe to us in YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere. Thank you so much. I wish you all an amazing day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Thank you.